Hi, I'm Chris Coombs, and this is The Truth in Diabetes. Time for another summertime tip. I guess this is another tip that, yeah, it could be in the summertime, but then again, it could be any time of the year. So, a good friend of ours and supporter of The Truth in Diabetes, Maria, posted and said, probably time for you to do a blog post on travel and diabetes. Excellent suggestion. So I really wanted to do this cool video in an airport when I was on my unplanned trip to Portland this last week, and well, my trip to the airport ended up being like that scene you see in Home Alone where the family's running through the airport to make their flight. So yeah, that's what happened there. So you get to deal with me hanging out underneath a tree and shade and water and all that stuff again. So when it comes to traveling and diabetes, you're going to experience some things. Number one is if you are traveling via airplane, guess what? There's this thing called transportation security admission or something like that. You get to go through that airport screening. That's a good time. I will say I have never, ever been hassled by the man, so to speak. So that was the first thing that came to me that I should probably talk about is that. And the biggest thing that I found, you can have pump supplies, you can have syringes, you can have insulin vials, you can have all of that. The biggest thing that I saw there that, you may or may not have is if you've got needles, they want to see a sharps container. And I thought, well, that's fascinating. So yeah, if you've got spent needles, make sure you got a sharps container to put those in when you're traveling, especially if you're traveling on an airplane, so that can be a big deal. But let's go back to the basics on travel and diabetes. What are the basics of diabetes care? Diet, medication, exercise. I mean, it's those three things. Those are the three things that we're told over and over and over again. Now, first thing I want to talk about is medication. There is nothing that will screw up a trip like running out of a medication or not having a medication when you are traveling. So do yourself a favor, make sure you take the time to plan ahead when you go on a trip. This last week, I literally had to throw everything in a bag and I was gone. Almost ran out of one of my insulins, but here's the thing. Make sure your prescription is current. If you're traveling inside the U.S., it's not too hard to go to a pharmacy like a Walgreens or a CVS or something like that that's in multiple markets, multiple areas, and have your prescription transferred. It's just a little bit of a hassle if you're on a vacation. You got to be calling your doctor's office and coordinating back and forth between your doctor, a pharmacist, your insurance, all that kind of stuff. So make sure you take the time to plan ahead so that you have plenty of your medication with you. Next thing I want to talk about is diet. When you're traveling, are you cooking out of your kitchen, planning your meals ahead, all that? No, not really. Take extra testing supplies, because here's the reality of it. You go on vacation, you might deviate from your meal plan a little bit, and this is when you want to work with your doctor on your insulin dosing so that you can learn how to give yourself a little bit extra if needed, or if you're going to be doing something really active, like let's say it's a hiking trip, you're going to be really active, you know how to adjust it down based on what you're doing, what you're eating, what you need. In my case, I'm on the Lantus. I love it. This past trip, it was kind of a sad time. If you watch my previous post, we didn't eat a whole lot, so I wasn't taking a ton of insulin. So all I needed was my basal covered for the most part, and then boluses when I ate, so it worked out. But anyway, that's something you need to watch for and work with on your doctor. Work with on that with your doctor, your dosing, so that you can adjust your medication according to what's going on and what your needs are. I'd love to give you that advice, but again, not a doctor, can't give you that kind of medical advice without getting myself in trouble. And then the third thing is exercise. Just because you're on vacation doesn't mean you necessarily have to quit or you can't exercise. I mean, it was fun. That was a highlight of my vacations. I went for, I think, 4 different runs in the park with my sister and my brother-in-law, and brought one of the dogs along too. So you can do things. There's little easy workout tips. I mean, that's probably another blog post for another day. But I mean, take a walk, take a run. Most hotels nowadays have gyms in them. You can do weight training, treadmill. They usually have an elliptical or something like that, or there's a pool you can swim around. But if that's an important part of your management program, which it is for most diabetics, take that time to exercise. So I mean, those are your core 3 things you want to keep in mind. You want to think about when you're traveling, you're diabetic. Think about your medication, think about your food, what you're going to be eating, and then that exercise. Make sure you don't neglect those needs. So those are basic. I hope that answered your question just a little bit, Maria. Just a couple tips. I mean, honestly, my number one thing with travel and diabetes is that medication issue. I don't know how many times, even after 20 years, I'll go and I'll forget to take test strips, or I'll forget one kind of insulin, or I won't have enough needles. and there's many misadventure stories I could share on that, but you can save yourself a lot of headache, a lot of hassle when you're on vacations. You can just be focusing on the things you want to. So anyway, there's some basic travel tips with diabetes. Remember, take the time, even when you're on vacation, to take care of you, take care of that diabetes, because disease or destiny, my friends, it's your choice.